Do you have trouble making connections with other people? Is your self-care on the bottom of your to-do list? Are your relationships healthy? We're going to talk about this and more on today's episode of Social Wellness. So get comfy, grab a healthy snack. Let's uncover the hidden truths of our social wellness together. Welcome to Discipline Over Desire. Candice here, your host on today's episode of the social well-being aspect of your health. We're continuing our series on the structure of well-being. This episode focuses on social wellness. You can check out the previous episodes where I discuss the 8 dimensions of health. Let me ask you this. Can you really get sick from having poor social health? Published research says, yeah, you can.
What?
In fact, scientific evidence shows us that social relationships benefit our health. These social scientists explain that our social relationships actually affect our behavior and physical health, and our risk of dying. The research proves that there is a link between social relationships and health outcomes, and that there can be short and long-term effects on our health. If this area of health is a strength of yours, you'll be happy to hear that you're more likely to lead a healthier and longer life than those who are isolated. For those of us who do have difficulty in this area, listen up. You got to get out there and work on that social muscle because your health depends on it. We're going to talk about what social wellness is, how it can impact our health, the science behind it, and then discuss strategies to improve our social health. Ready? Let's dig in. Now, I found it startling to learn that the effects on our health regarding social wellness can emerge in childhood and can impact our health throughout our lives. So, let's head over to Georgetown University and listen to their Center for Child and Human Development's program because they explained what social and emotional health is in our early childhood stage. Notice how we see these elements of health interlinked again. You've got social and emotional webbed together. So, they state that within the context of one's family, community, and cultural background, social and emotional health is the child's developing capacity to form secure relationships, experience and regulate emotions, and explore and learn. They define social health as the reflection of a child's developing ability to form close, secure relationships with other familiar people in their lives, such as parents, relatives, and other nurturing caregivers. That trusting bond helps children to feel safe in exploring their world. Moreover, when children's social and emotional health is compromised, it can create huge challenges that can lead to failing in school. They struggle in building friendships and have negative feelings about themselves. They note that 1 in 5 children enter kindergarten with poor social development skills, and children from underserved populations are the least likely to have positive social interaction when they enter school. I know this all too well, being a child that was raised in a low-income, single-parent, abusive home. I only met my father a few times in my life, and from what I understand about him, he had an alcohol addiction and struggled with social anxiety symptoms. My mother also struggled with these symptoms and was diagnosed with depression. She didn't have healthy relationships, and in most cases, she was the difficult person. I remember my anxiety was so severe that when someone rang the doorbell, I would run and hide under the bed. I struggled with making friends, my grades suffered, and I developed unhealthy habits. I was very sickly during my childhood. I missed a lot of school because I was always sick. I almost failed and dropped out of school. Of course, I was also diagnosed with social anxiety disorder, but that was later on in life. During delivery, while I was having surgery, I had a panic attack. So, like some of you, I'm learning the significance of social wellness in my life. I'm striving for a healthier lifestyle than the one I used to know, and I want to break that cycle that kept my parents in bondage. I don't want my children to ever experience what I did. I vowed to be the healthiest me and to model resilience for my descendants when life gets messy. So, by helping nurture children early, this will allow them to be positive contributors to society later on in life. And early relationships are the foundation for healthy or unhealthy brain development. Now that we know how social wellness affects us as young children, let's jump ahead to the CDC and hear what they say about older adults and social wellness. They say that loneliness and social isolation are linked to serious health conditions. They warn us that it's a serious public health risk and it affects a significant number of people in the U.S. If we're struggling with loneliness and social isolation, we put ourselves at risk for dementia and other serious medical conditions.
Aww.
They mention a report from the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine, NASEM. They found that a third of adults over 45 years old feel lonely, and a fourth of adults age 65 and older are considered to be socially isolated. The older we get, we're at an increased risk for being lonely and feeling socially isolated because things in life can happen, such as having to live alone, losing loved ones, chronic illnesses, and so on. They state that social isolation is a lack of social connections. It can lead to loneliness in some people, and others can feel lonely without being socially isolated. That means that many of our senior citizens might be feeling socially isolated and very lonely, and this is putting their health at risk. Here are the health risks they list for loneliness. There's recent studies that found that social isolation increases their risk of premature death from all causes, and it might even be riskier than smoking and obesity and being sedentary. Social isolation is associated with a 50% increased risk of dementia. And having poor social relationships increases the risk of heart disease and stroke. It's associated with higher rates of depression, anxiety, and suicide. Finally, loneliness reported among heart failure patients was associated with a nearly 4 times increased risk of death, a significant percentage of increased risk of hospitalization, and an increased risk of emergency department visits. Human connection is a need that we all have. These social connections are relationships that help improve our mental health, and it's critical to improving our overall health. Having a lack of social connections actually increases our stress hormones and can weaken our immune system and decrease our cardiovascular function.
Whoa.
In fact, when we're lonely, we tend to consume more alcohol. We stop exercising. We don't get good sleep, causing us to be extremely fatigued. It's important to have somebody that you can personally share your highs and lows in life with. We all need a community of people to help support us and talk to help us feel better. Living in this digital age, technology has both helped and hindered our social wellness. It's wonderful to be able to connect with people online, but what happens when we find ourselves in an online circle of people who feed us distorted information? For instance, NCBI, the National Center for Biotechnology Information, has an article about how using social media can present us with health misinformation. They mention findings of online communities that some can be helpful, but then some can give the wrong information. If we're not careful, social media can lead to unhealthy relationships and to following bad advice and ultimately to putting ourselves in harm's way. Do you have a lot of friends or social media connections, like online friends and followers? Well, when a problem arises in your life, do you feel free to talk to any of them about it? Are they trustworthy? That's great if you do.
Sweet.
But for those who don't, psychologist and author Emma Sapala says, you could have 1,000 friends, but if you don't feel connected on the inside, you don't get any benefits. She explains the science behind social connections. Data shows people with low social connection have more anxiety and depression, and it's been linked to suicide and also to violent behavior. She says that people who are responsible for violent actions or behavior are people who are severely isolated, and that it impacts us even at the cellular level, where there's greater inflammation for the people who are suffering from loneliness. And that low social connection is worse than smoking, obesity, and high blood pressure. Emma emphasizes the importance of social connections being a predictor of better psychological well-being and better physical health, as well as increasing immunity for faster recovery from diseases and the increase of longevity. She also stresses human compassion and that to be more compassionate, you have to be more self-compassionate. When you apply compassion to yourself, it helps you become more resilient in challenges and helps you to succeed. She notes that research shows we're happier when we give. That reminds me, there's that age-old saying, "'Tis better to give than to receive." I love that Emma shares with us that if we're compassionate in life, it's contagious to the other people around. And that when you have compassion in your life, you feel connected. You get all the benefits of connection, and those around you become more compassionate too. Moving on, let's discuss NIH's toolkit for improving our social wellness. Here are their 6 strategies for improving. 1. Make connections. 2. Take care of yourself while caring for others. 3. Get active together. 4. Bond with your kids. 5. Build healthy relationships. 6. Shape your family's health habits. Okay, let's tackle making connections because we've already heard about the findings of social connections influencing our biology. We know we need to look for ways to get involved with others. I want you to think about your favorite hobbies. Is it reading? Is it running? It doesn't matter if it's something as sedentary as one of mine, which is knitting, because they recommend joining a group that's focused on some of our favorite hobbies. Although I will add that if it's a physical activity, you could work on your social wellness at the same time as your physical wellness.
Woohoo!
Let's take a look at what the city of San Antonio has to offer us as far as community events and groups go that might improve our social wellness. Faith-based organizations offer fellowship and support groups. Some are paid, some are free, and there's so many churches to choose from in this huge city. I myself have taken advantage of offerings. As I mentioned before, my husband and I completed that course, Financial Peace University. We also joined the support/marriage workshop called Re-Engage to help strengthen our marriage. I've taken fitness classes. I even instructed fitness classes that were available free to the community for anybody who was interested in resistance and run training. Recovery and grief supports are also available, and moms and grandmas of young children. There's Parents' Night Out to help parents with date night. It's definitely worth checking out. The library is another great resource, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be mentioning this when we discuss intellectual wellness because they offer so many services. With just a glance at sapl.org, you can see a calendar of events that include various age groups, from babies to senior citizens. Meetup.com has so many groups, from playgroups for parents with young children to help with socializing, and outdoor fitness groups, networking groups, singles groups. You'll see, there's a long list. You're bound to find one that appeals to you so that you can connect with like-minded people. Next, we have taking care of yourself while caring for others. They mention that at some point in all of our lives, we will become a caretaker or caregiver to a loved one, and it's important that we make time for ourselves. It's a good idea to practice good time management skills, and that means we're going to need to be very organized and make to-do lists, set schedules, get into a routine for ourselves. I think many times we run into stressful situations because we don't reach out and ask somebody for help. I really appreciate that we have personal shoppers available to us, but I understand that businesses like these can become very costly. But if you're able to utilize these services like DoorDash and HEB curbside, they could be a big help. And if you surround yourself with supportive people, they might be able to set up a meal train for you and cover a meal for you to take a break. Now, last time when we talked about emotional wellness, I mentioned finding that quiet time, something that brings calmness in our life. Well, self-care involves setting aside peaceful time for ourselves. It'll go a long way in demonstrating more patience and grace in stressful situations or with difficult people. Next, let's move on to get active together. And we already mentioned that fitness classes exist from churches in our city. Most are offered free and available to everyone. We also have running clubs like San Antonio Roadrunners Club, and the San Antonio Parks and Recreation Department offers all kinds of programs like Fitness in the Park. Moving on, we got bond with your kids. Parents and guardians of children understand how rewarding and challenging it is to raise children. We have to provide sensitivity, be responsive in practicing active listening, and be consistent to build a positive, healthy relationship. Because it's these emotional bonds that result and help children in learning how to manage their own feelings and behaviors and to develop self-confidence. They say that strong connections to caregivers are more likely to help them cope with life's challenges. To build strong relationships with our children, we can try offering them praise whenever they show good behavior. Give them a meaningful job, offer positive recognition, use kind words and tones and gestures. Even a gentle pat on the back or stroke of the hair can speak louder than words. If you have the opportunity to have your meals at a table together where you can face one another and put away the cell phone and other distractions so that your children can be the main focus, offer them solutions to problems when they come to you for advice and support, talk about their goals. I know the focus here seems to be on young children and their development, but I'll add that even when your children are grown, it's still important to have a relationship as long as it's a healthy one. Which brings us to building healthy relationships. A strong, healthy relationship is important throughout our entire lives. It can make a huge impact on our mental and physical well-being. As children, we learn social skills and learn how to form and maintain relationships. It's important that we understand what a healthy relationship looks like. We need to recognize how other people influence us and acknowledge who we're surrounding ourselves with. Are they good influencers or do they bring us down? Are there difficult people in our life or are they extremely toxic?
Do it or else.
We should assess for ourselves if our relationships help or hinders our health. We need to be able to share our feelings openly and honestly, and to be able to share our dreams and aspirations and talk about our feelings without feeling judged or criticized. We need cheerleaders in our lives who are going to make us feel like they're on our team. We need to be able to ask other people for help because life can become overwhelming. It's important that we're also practicing caring for others and being empathetic so we can receive the same. When we have disagreements, we need to agree to disagree, and that means be respectful. Conflicts are healthy in a relationship. But what's not healthy is belittling one another, shouting, and personally attacking each other. Sometimes we have to step away from a conversation that gets too heated, and sometimes people know which buttons to push. Something gets triggered within us. If you already know how you usually respond and it's a negative way, it could escalate. Practicing ways of calming down and remaining quiet is going to be the best thing that you can do for yourself and others. We want to avoid being overly critical and avoid those angry outbursts and violent behavior. We need to be able to compromise and come to an agreement. Being peacekeepers, there's breathing exercises you can learn to help you calm down. We need to protect ourselves from violent and abusive people. We can set boundaries with others and decide what we are willing to do and what we're not willing to do. And I can't stress this enough. It's okay to say no. I learned that from the book Boundaries by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend. It's recommended by many counselors. We need to learn the difference between healthy and unhealthy and abusive ways of relating to others. NIH recommends the website loveisrespect.org. They explain what a healthy relationship looks like and what an unhealthy one looks like, and what an abusive relationship looks like. Finally, our last strategy in improving our social wellness is shaping our family's health habits. Many things can influence our children, whoever they're surrounded by. That could be friends, family, teachers, even media. So whatever they're reading or watching or whatever they're doing online, if you're raising children, know that your behavior plays a big role in shaping their behavior. With your help, they can develop a healthy diet, healthy physical activity, habits all around that's going to stay with them for the rest of their lives. And we'll touch more on that when we get to the physical health aspect of wellness. So how do we help children form healthy habits? We need to be a role model by eating healthier and participating in an active lifestyle, veering from sedentary activities like snacking in front of the TV or constantly on our smartphones. We need to make healthy choices, and that means when we go to the grocery store, avoid buying the processed foods like the cookies and chips and drinking soda.
Boo!
Buy the fruit. I tell clients to shop the perimeter of the grocery store. That means limiting items that can be purchased in the grocery aisles, in the middle of the store. We need to fuel ourselves with good nutrition, and that's that green stuff in the produce section.
Oh, yeah.
Or the eggs in the refrigerator. We'll talk more about that again when we get to physical wellness. We want to focus on fun, playing in the park, walking on trails. San Antonio has many nature trails for hiking and biking. Again, the San Antonio Parks and Recreation Department has a long list of all the parks that offer opportunities to kayak and swim. One of my favorite parks is Pearsall Park. In fact, not too long ago, they added a new area, the Free Will Bike Park, and many of our parks have included skate parks, dog parks, and even obstacle courses. Some are lined with trees and are very shady on a hot day. I'm curious if you found a favorite park in San Antonio, so I'd like to hear about it. While my website is still under development, you can send me your comments to disciplineodesire@gmail.com. So back to being aware of what we're modeling for our children. So what relational habits are they picking up from us? For instance, I can attest that I never witnessed healthy conflict resolution at home. I was raised in an abusive family. So my relationships leading up to my marriage, I actually imitated behavior that I learned at home. Is because I studied my Bible, grew in faith, developing a relationship with Jesus, that I learned how to demonstrate forgiveness, grace, and patience with others. And here we are, my husband and I, 25 years later after becoming a couple, and we have healthy conflict. And yes, we've had many disagreements in front of our children, and they've witnessed ways to work through a disagreement without belittling one another, without the screaming or throwing things or any physical assault. We learn to humble ourselves. And we don't want to miss out on a good night's rest, so it's not worth fighting about. I think that's all that we've got time for today. So there you have it. Social wellness is linked to our emotional wellness. And early in life, we picked up from our caregivers how to form secure relationships, regulate emotions, and create trusting bonds. We also learned about the advantages and disadvantages that social health has on our bodies and our mental health. Thanks for exploring social wellness with me. Until we gather again together, stay connected, nurture those social bonds, and make time to take care of yourself. Thanks for joining me. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform. I hope you gain new insights from each episode every week. Discipline Over Desire was created for my clients to get a better understanding of their overall wellness to achieve their fitness goals. The show's hosted and produced by me, Candice. If you enjoyed this episode, please do me a favor and review the show, like and subscribe, help the show grow. I'll use your feedback to improve future episodes. And if you have a question, I'm happy to answer it. Don't forget to show me some love by visiting my website. I'll keep you updated on when it's ready. Thanks again for listening. Till next time, don't forget, when life gets heavy, just roll the weights.